Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Representatives from England's Cambridgeshire police say that a 26-year-old man has been sentenced to prison time this week following a recent incident in which he led police on a high-speed chase, only to find himself foiled by a bit of foliage. According to reports, the whole thing began just after noon on July 7th, when police attempted to conduct a traffic stop on a blue Kia in the town of Huntingdon. However, rather than stopping, the driver, 26-year-old Michael Ledley, panicked and drove off. It turned out that Ledley had a pretty good reason to be nervous. He had more than $1,900 worth of cocaine in his vehicle and was already on parole for another drug offense at the time. Unfortunately for the 26-year-old, despite weaving in and out of traffic and driving 80 in a 40-mile-per-hour zone, he wasn't able to avoid police for long. The short-lived chase came to an end when he accidentally swerved off the road and into some dense bushes where he got stuck. Following his arrest, Ledley pleaded guilty to a number of offenses, including possession of Class A drugs with intent to supply, possession of Class C drugs with intent to supply, dangerous driving, driving otherwise than in accordance with a license, and driving with no insurance. This week, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Authorities in the Australian state of Victoria say that a family has been left incredibly shaken this week after an elderly man was the victim of a terrifying unprovoked shooting just steps from his home, one that police now believe may have been a case of mistaken identity. According to reports, the incident began at around 7:50 p.m. on August 17th, when the victim, 76-year-old David Nairn, heard the doorbell ring at his home on Canterbury Road in the Melbourne suburb of Middle Park. David went to answer the door, however, when he opened up, no one was there. Noticing that the gate to his front yard was open, David reportedly walked a few steps outside to investigate when he was approached by an unknown man. The man, who was dressed in a full-body outfit that has been described either as a hazmat suit or a painter's suit, proceeded to pull out a gun. David's wife and daughter, who were also home at the time, Catherine and Claire, later told media that they heard some words exchanged between David and the stranger before a loud sound rang out. Upon running outside, they realized David had been shot in the leg. Luckily for David, his wife is a doctor and his daughter is a nurse, so they were quickly able to get his bleeding under control while they waited for an ambulance to arrive. He was rushed to a local hospital where he was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. Unfortunately, by the time police arrived, the shooter was long gone. He was last seen running across the street towards Albert Park Lake. At the time of this recording, it appears that police are still actively searching for the unknown suspect. Given the fact that David and his family have no known enemies, and the family says they can't think of any reason someone would want to harm him, investigators believe that he might not have been the intended target of the attack. Instead, they say that the crime may have been a case of mistaken identity, one that's all the more concerning given the apparent planning that went into it. Any members of the public with information about the shooting are now being encouraged by police to come forward, especially those who might have surveillance video or dashcam footage from the area. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Italian region of Piemonte say that a 21-year-old Dutch national is in custody this week, following a 2-day manhunt after he allegedly stabbed 2 people to death. According to reports, the incident unfolded on the afternoon of August 16th at a small mountain village property in the community of Montaldo di Mondovì, located close to the border with France. The suspect, later identified as 21-year-old Sasha Chang, had apparently arrived at the residence alongside his 65-year-old father, Hein Fa, to spend a few days with a family friend who owned the place. While it's unclear exactly what transpired that afternoon, local media reports suggest that at around 4 p.m., Sasha got into an argument with his father. Things allegedly escalated when the 21-year-old grabbed a knife, attacking his father, then the family friend, when he attempted to intervene. Neighbors, who apparently overheard the commotion, immediately alerted police. However, sadly, by the time they arrived, there was little they could do. Hein Fa was pronounced dead at the scene, while the other victim succumbed to his injuries on the way to the hospital. Sasha was nowhere to be found. The terrifying incident prompted a manhunt for the 21-year-old, while members of the public were encouraged to stay inside and not venture out into the surrounding countryside. The search came to an end 2 days later, when Sasha was found hiding in the woods after first being spotted on a bench outside of a church in a community roughly 7.5 miles away from where the murders took place. He was taken into custody without issue. While it appears no official motive has been released at the time of this recording, multiple local sources claim that the 21-year-old suspect suffers from undisclosed psychiatric issues. Authorities in the Uruguayan department of Canelones say that an elderly couple are lucky to be alive this week, following a terrifying ordeal in which their estranged son allegedly showed up at their home during the middle of a family event and tried to murder them. The incident unfolded sometime on the afternoon of August 20th, when one of the victims was celebrating her 80th birthday at her home in the Montevideo suburb of Ciudad de la Costa. She and her 82-year-old husband had invited a bunch of their children, grandchildren, and other family members over, and everyone was enjoying the party, when out of nowhere, things took a horrifying turn. Unbeknownst to the couple, their 48-year-old son, who had reportedly spent the last 20 years living in Spain, had been planning to kill them for months. That afternoon, he drove his motorcycle to the area, parked it well away from the crime scene, and then hopped fences through several neighbors' yards before climbing into their residence through an open window. Once inside, he pulled out a handgun and, without a word, started shooting at his mother and father. Though the 48-year-old managed to hit his mother in the neck and his father in the foot, these would be the only 2 shots he would get off. As he tried to fire more rounds, his gun jammed, providing brave Good Samaritans with a vital window to intervene. One of those who ended up subduing the gunman was a young off-duty police officer who had only been on the job for about a month, and who just so happened to live a couple doors down. Thankfully, both victims survived. According to reports, the 48-year-old suspect was motivated to commit the heinous crime over a supposed land dispute. The exact details of this dispute are unclear, though some reports state that it had to do with a house that the suspect felt belonged to him that his parents had put in his brother's name. He had allegedly returned to Uruguay from Spain a few months ago, and ever since had been planning his revenge against his parents. The 48-year-old is now facing aggravated attempted homicide charges over the incident and remains in custody. None of the names of those involved in the case have been released at this time. Officials in Kenya say that 2 people are in custody this week following the tragic murder of a promising Rwandan runner, a situation that is believed to have been the result of a deadly love triangle. According to reports, 34-year-old Rubaita Saragi first arrived in Kenya in 2017. Like thousands of other runners before him, he had come to develop his skills at the globally renowned training center in the town of Iten, with dreams of one day representing his home country of Rwanda on the world stage. While running was Siragi's life, those close to him say that eventually he also found love when he met Kenya medical training college student 28-year-old Nelvin Ajuma. The two became close, and for 2 years they dated. Though many of Siragi's friends say that they expected the pair to get married, it appears that the couple broke up in December of last year. After that, Ajuma began seeing a new man, another athlete, 27-year-old Duncan Kamala. This is where things get fuzzy. While some of those close to Siragi say that he and Ajuma rekindled their romance at some point, others say that they simply remained friends. Regardless, it seems that they had a close relationship, one that supposedly began to increasingly get under the skin of Duncan Kamala. On the afternoon of August 17th, Saragi reportedly left his residence, telling his roommates that he was going out to do a bit of last-minute shopping. The following day, he was supposed to travel to Uganda to pick up a visa that he needed for an upcoming running competition in Italy. Since he was going to be gone for a while, he wanted to get a small gift for Ajuma to say goodbye. The 34-year-old packed his bags in preparation for his trip and then left the house. A few hours later, Saragi's roommates became concerned when he failed to return and they were unable to reach him. It wasn't until the following day that they learned the heartbreaking news. Their friend was dead. According to reports, Saragi's body was found at the side of a local road sometime between the night of August 17th and the morning of August 18th. He had clearly been the victim of a brutal beating. Authorities now allege that the 34-year-old was attacked by Kamala after dropping off his gift for Ajuma at her house. While there, it's believed that Kamala learned of the visit, after which he came and violently confronted Saragi. At the time of this recording, police say that they have detained both Kamala and Ajuma in connection with the case. It's unclear why Ajuma was also taken into custody, though it's possible that this is related to unconfirmed allegations from some of those close to Saragi that she was in on the murder as well. So far, police have yet to lay charges in connection with the case, though say that their investigation is ongoing. Authorities in the Chinese city of Taizhou say that they are searching for an unknown woman this week after she was accused of carrying out a bizarre and deceitful scheme in order to scam free food in compensation from local restaurants. According to reports, the whole thing came to light last week after the unidentified suspect walked into a local restaurant and placed an order for several different dishes. Not long after receiving her food, the woman called staff members over to her table, showing them a long hair that she said she had found in her meal. After apologizing profusely, the owner of the restaurant said that he would replace the food and had the kitchen prepare a whole fresh order. However, when the food arrived, the same thing happened. Once again, the woman claimed that she had found a hair in her food. By this point, the woman reportedly appeared agitated and started to say that the restaurant was unhygienic. The embarrassed owner apologized a second time, gave her another order of food, and said that everything was free. Though this appeared to fix everything, the owner couldn't shake the feeling that something about the situation felt wrong. Finally, it occurred to him. Both of the hairs that the woman claimed to find in her food were quite long, and all of the people who worked in his kitchen had short hair. That's when he decided to review CCTV footage from the day before to see if he could figure out what had happened. To the owner's astonishment, when he looked over the footage, he learned that his instincts had been right. Bizarrely, the woman was caught on camera mixing her own hair into her food both times. Realizing that he had been scammed, the owner filed a report with local police. Upon seeing the footage, officers said that they recognized the woman in the video. It turned out that she had been doing this same thing at a number of restaurants in the area. While most of the time the scam had resulted in free food, in some cases the woman had even managed to demand financial compensation from the embarrassed and apologetic business owners, who were understandably worried about rumors of unhygienic food ruining their restaurants' reputations. At the time of this recording, it's unclear if the woman has yet been identified. According to the latest available information we could find, police were still searching for her at the time of this recording. Authorities in the South Korean capital of Seoul say that a 30-year-old man is in custody this week following the brutal and terrifying murder of a woman on a hiking trail. According to reports, the incident took place on August 17th on a trail in Silim, an area of Gwanak district in the city's south. Police were alerted around noon when hikers in the area reported hearing what sounded like the screams of an unknown woman. When officers arrived, they traveled to a hillside along the trail where they found both a man and a female victim. The woman was unconscious, though appeared to have suffered injuries to her head. The man was arrested at the scene and later identified as 30-year-old Choi Yun-jung. Sadly, the victim, who was said to be an elementary school teacher also in her 30s, died in the hospital from her injuries 2 days later. Authorities now allege that on the day of the crime, Choi chillingly went out on the hiking trail looking for a random woman to attack. When he came across the victim, he reportedly beat her with a blunt metal object and sexually assaulted her before strangling her. At the time of this recording, Choi remains in custody, though it's unclear if he is yet facing formal charges. No motive has been released behind the nightmarish crime. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you might remember that last week we brought you a heartbreaking story out of the English county of Surrey. It was here, in a house in the village of Horsell in the early morning hours of August 10th, that police discovered the lifeless body of a young girl named Sarah Sharif. No one else was home at the time. If you'll recall, at the time of our last report, little additional information was available about the case. The few details that had been released were alarming, including the fact that the situation was being investigated as a homicide, and that it was believed that all three people wanted for questioning in connection with the case had fled the country prior to the discovery of Sarah's body. While the investigation is still very much developing, several new pieces of information have been reported since the time of our last recording, so we decided we would do a bit of an update. For starters, we now know all the names of the people who are wanted for questioning in relation to Sarah's death. They have been identified as her father, 41-year-old Irfan Sharif, her stepmother, 29-year-old Bainash Batul, and one of her paternal uncles, 28-year-old Faisal Malik. It's now alleged that the three fled to their native Pakistan the day before Sarah's body was found, taking 5 other children in the family with them, including Sarah's 13-year-old brother. Not only that, but it's been reported that it was a call made by Irfan Sharif shortly after arriving in the country that led police to the horrifying discovery. As for where Irfan and the others are now, that remains a mystery. Pakistani authorities, who are now taking an active role in the case, say that they have reason to believe that the group briefly returned to Irfan's family home in the city of Jhelum. However, it appears that they have since fled. Other family members claim that they have no idea where they could be, though police say that they do not believe them, with one source saying, quote, "They are telling us a pack of lies." At least 2 of Irfan's other brothers have since been detained as part of the investigation for questioning. One of these brothers, Imran Sharif, has since claimed that Sarah's death was accidental and that she died during a fall down the stairs. He reportedly told authorities that his brother panicked after the death and fled the UK, fearing that the rest of his children would be taken away from him. Other pieces of information appear to contradict this story, though, particularly reports which state that a handwritten note was found with Sarah's body claiming that a person known to the family had beaten her to death. The note allegedly reads, quote, "Whoever sees this, it was redacted who killed Sarah by beating. I am running away because I am scared." Still further reports suggest that something even more sinister may have been going on, after Surrey police revealed that they had broadened the scope of their investigation. This allegedly came after post-mortem tests showed that Sarah sustained, quote, "multiple and extensive injuries," which were, quote, "likely to have been caused over a sustained and extended period of time." At the time of this recording, the manhunt for Irfan, Bainash, and Faisal continues in Pakistan, while police in the UK are simultaneously appealing to the public for anyone who might be able to shed further light on Sarah Sharif's home life prior to her death. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.